a spider can. Spins a web any size. Catches thieves just like flies. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, a name engraved in all of our minds. Appearing for the first time in 1961, he became one of the most popular fictional characters on Earth. So for all new and old fans, watching the perfect animated depiction is a necessary. That's why I'm going to tell you all not only the differences between the Spider-Man variations on screen, but also the one I recommend to you all. This video is formatted in a list form, so first I will talk about all the necessities and which show does it best, along with all the differences among each show, and then finally the conclusion. Quick thing I want to share though, if you're not really interested in the differences, or you just simply don't have time to watch the whole video, skip to here where I give the final descriptions and what show I recommend to my beautiful audience. Enough yapping, let's go. So with character design, it's more of an optional thing, so I'll be telling you both my opinion as well as a third person opinion, so I'm not biased. So first, I'll start with a common opinion. If this is going to be your first time watching a Spider-Man show, which I assume not, because why else would you be interested in this video? But whatever, let's say your friend suggested you Spider-Man, and you're like, wow, I really like this guy, and you're looking for a show which represents the character's costume and body design properly, I would suggest the Spider-Man from 1994, because although it's from a long time ago, it really depicts Stan Lee's version of the design of Spider-Man and his foes. Now, I personally think that the Spider-Man from 2017 has a better character design. You see, back in the 1900s, the comic book superheroes were illustrated as big, strong, and bulky men. But as time grew, we started to see more characters with not so perfect body designs, mainly because the popular form of entertainment regarding comic book characters shifted from strong, perfect men to flawed but ambitious men and women. So, it didn't really matter how they looked or who they were, it was their dream. Spider-Man 2017 illustrates the characters as normal but courageous people. Like, look at their design. Before this show, notice how all the characters were bulky, big, and now they're characterized as normal people, and their animation style is improved. Not to mention how absolutely fire the Spider-Man suit looks. I mean, how many times will we have to see the same suit? I mean, look at this. And same follows from Miles, Gwen, and Anya, along with some villains like Venom and Scorpion. But we can't leave this topic halfway. As much as I loved the character design for the heroes of Spider-Man 2017, take a look at the villains. My brother used to make fun of these. I mean, seriously, compare the two. So as much as I would prefer Spider-Man 2017's character design goes to Spider-Man 1994. Understand though, this is just a character design. This says nothing about the character themselves, or even about the story, so let's move on. By the way, just for the sake of it, here are some other character designs for Spider-Man, and the only difference that I can notice is the animation style, as I mentioned before, and also how basic the suit is. So let's move on with character depiction. Now it's time to talk about character depiction, or in other words, how well a character is portrayed by a show. Now, although I do have an answer for this, I want to convey something first. I heard how there was a lot of hate going around with how poorly Ultimate Spider-Man or Spider-Man Unlimited handled their character, but here's what I want to say. Imagine you opened up Disney Plus and you wanted to watch a Spider-Man show, and each show was basically the same thing, just with a new name. Okay, maybe not even a new name, just a new animation and style. What would be the point if every single character was the same, with the same voice and the same costume or the same story? What would even be the point? Shows want to add changes or want to experiment with their characters to see what best fits, and say people like me end up enjoying it. Why should they not? See, the main reason Marvel has released so many Spider-Man shows is each time they feel like Spider-Man has been through enough in a specific show, they close it off to avoid repetition, and start a new show to fill the void. This time with a slightly different approach. But say we're talking big like Spider-Man is about to join the MCU or something big like that. Then it is important to nail the character because it's a one-time thing. But if they were about to start a new show altogether, it would make sense to opt for a different approach rather than remaking the same thing 50 times. I mean, that's why people like Spider-Verse. But now let's get back to what show has the best illustration of our friendly neighborhood web-slinger. So with my research, I actually found that the older Spider-Man shows did a better job at portraying Spider-Man rather than the newer ones. And because you all are so intelligent, I'll expect you to know why. I feel like Spider-Man 1967 did the best job at portraying Spider-Man. As you should probably know, this was the first time a very popular comic book character was about to air on TV, so they had to depict him right, in contrast to now, when they want to try something new. Spider-Man 1967 did such a good job at representing Spider-Man for new viewers, even my mother would wait for each episode to air. But I think it will be fair if I briefly describe Spider-Mans from other shows. Spider-Man 1994 describes him the same way as 1981, just better character designs. Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends is starring the same Spider-Man scene in 1981's show. Spider-Woman is about a totally different character named Jessica Drew. Spider-Man Unlimited is about a 30-year-old father who fakes his death to dodge hate. Well, Spider-Man 2017 is basically the modernized and friendlier version of Spider-Man 1981, and Ultimate Spider-Man is like the kids' version of Spider-Man. Now that we're happy with how our friendly neighborhood heroes look and behave, let's go to something a little more important, the setting of the show. Now here's where I'll throw a lot of people off, because once again, I recommend Spider-Man 2017. Now if I were to be dead honest with my gorgeous audience, this opinion of mine is a little biased. Take a look at all the shows I represented in this video. I eliminated about 80% of these options because of their setting. You see, as time grew by, technology grew, people's mindset grew, and so did a lot of other factors which make a show the way it is. And writers like Stan Lee did what all other writers started doing: modernizing their characters, explaining the science behind their characters. I mean, look at classic Iron Man and then classic Ant-Man. These characters got major updates, not only to their character design, but also to their way of doing things. And this didn't happen only with Marvel characters, it happened with everyone and everything. This including our favorite star-spangled hero Captain America, of course, who remained the same only because his setting was perfect and didn't have to be changed. Now back to Spider-Man. Everywhere I go, I see people who say that they love Spider-Man for one and only one reason, because he's flawed but relatable. Now, how are people today supposed to relate to something back in the 1900s? That's the point. So we need a setting in which Spider-Man has a smartphone rather than having to walk to one of those booths to talk. And that's why I chose Spider-Man 2017. Because of its rather recent release, the characters not only have modernized objects and theories, they also have modernized language, like the use of bro and other modern terminologies like that, without ever losing the point and changing their character. But here's the catch. Spider-Man is about more than just how modern they are. Spider-Man 2017 has gotten so much hate in the past because of just everything, but mainly how everything centers around science or the publicly despised Horizon High. I watched this video one time by Captain Midnight, in which he talked about a lot of things wrong with Spider-Man 2017, and he stated that the show is better titled Adventures at Horizon High starring Spider-Man rather than Spider-Man. And here's what hurts me. He's right. Although this show does a spectacular job representing Spider-Man, it centers everything around Peter's special high school. Now, I personally have no problem with this change, because how many times will we have to watch the same thing over and over again? As a Spider-Man fan who's adored Spider-Man as a baby even till now, I liked this change. I felt like it was the motherboard to a computer, an explanation to rather unsettling things. It pulled the story together. I mean, how many times will some random guy choose to make a bunch of tentacles and declare themselves Dr. Octopus, or just anything like that? Horizon High acted as an explanation and origin to a lot of the heroes and villains in this show, rather than them just appearing out of nowhere. But hey, if you still disagree with me, we always have Ultimate Spider-Man, in which the story is more about Spider-Man than his school, but then also explain how an alien boss-level villain like Venom got introduced in the 4th episode, and how they turned into literal babies. I say, if you're looking for something new to watch about Spider-Man 2017 is the one. I mean, as long as you can dodge some of those nerdy jokes he makes in Season 1, I promise you the show gets better by the time you reach Season 3. And speaking of characters getting introduced too early in character development, flow of plot is something really important in the show, almost as important as the setting. Remember the example I gave about Venom being introduced in the 4th episode in Ultimate Spider-Man? That's what I'm talking about, the way characters are introduced. And this ties into setting almost all the time. Remember how I said that Horizon High is just the point to which everything connects to? Although a lot of people may say that's a horrendous thing, it helps break the character to you more easily, so the character doesn't just show up out of nowhere. In all of these shows besides Spider-Man 1981, Spider-Woman, and Spider-Man 2017, the characters are introduced so openly without any explanation. It kind of ruins the idea if all the characters are just endless. I like to think of it as a video game. You know, when you play a game, they're enemies. You battle them, and then there's a boss, which is stronger, more enhanced, and is harder to beat. That's why I like to think of villains in the show as well. Some examples of these bosses are like Dr. Octopus, Venom, Carnage, Kingpin. These are bosses you can't just find and defeat. They need some story. But if you introduce them in the first few episodes, you turn them into one of those small enemies. In terms of how good things are broken down, I choose Spider-Man 2017. Look, I know I sound so biased right now, but seriously, you have to give them a chance. I wouldn't be bragging about the show for nothing. I mean, okay, the first season isn't that good, but I agree with you. But the finale of this show, Maximum Venom, it's up there with Loki. I just recently rewatched it, and it's so awesome. It doesn't even feel like a kid's show. It adds a lot of the details that other shows don't include, like sadness, extreme emotions, and things like love, while keeping it PG. The point is, this show does a great job at maintaining a good story, as well as keeping a person like me, an almost 15-year-old, engaged in the story. I mean, I don't even like watching shows, because I'm always grinding. Okay, well, sometimes I watch shows, and to be honest, this is the only show besides Loki that I've binge-watched, like, straight through the roof. I promise, just put your trust in this show, and I don't even care if you start at season 2, but it's truly awesome, mate. Now, let's talk about some character variety. So throughout the many Spider-Man shows, there have been tons of cameos, but I'm not talking about Stan Lee this time. When I was researching about these shows, I noticed that in shows like Spider-Man 1981, Spider-Man 1994, and Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, a lot of the villains were present from a lot of other heroes. We had Red Skull, Doctor Doom, and other villains like that in a show, which, as a result, introduced other heroes like Captain America, Thor, Hulk, etc. But just taking a general overview of the shows, I realized that Ultimate Spider-Man has the most variety of characters, not only due to the fact that he has 6 entire seasons worth of villains, but also how other animated shows like Avengers Assemble, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Hulk and the Agents of Smash were part of the same cinematic universe as Ultimate Spider-Man. I mean, they appear in each other's episodes, their design is the same, and a lot of the things match up. These all go forward to show that they're in the same universe, and due to that, they often meet up and fight newer villains all together. So in terms of characters, Ultimate Spider-Man is rich. So if you're looking for the same vibe as the MCU, that's the closest show we got. Now, it's finally time we put all of this information together and tell you what's the actual best Spider-Man show to watch. So, after all that tussle, it's finally time I give a proper breakdown of each show. There are a total of 7 shows which can be found on Disney Plus regarding Spider-Man. And now, I'll be telling you all the details like the ratings, target demographic, and the general type of show. Now hear me. All these shows are above awesomeness considering in what time they were made. But in this video, I'll only be telling you about one. So even if you end up watching the show that I suggest, make sure to check out the other shows because maybe you end up liking it. Just because I feel a certain way about a show doesn't necessarily mean the show is bad, but that's just my opinion. So now that that's cleared out, let's go. I know this is not fair, but I put Spider-Woman as last on my list. Not that the show is bad or anything, but if we go back to the first example I gave you about you being a completely new addition to the web of Spider-Man, I would guess that you will want to see the life of Peter Parker rather than Jessica Drew, who has a completely different story. But at the same time, I also thought it would be unfair to not add Spider-Woman, because she does fall under the Disney Plus' Spider-Verse section. So yeah. Next, I put Spider-Man Unlimited. Now, I know you saw this coming, but seriously, adhering to all the other explanations I gave about trying something new, if you're an OG Spider-Man fan, this may be the show for you. But from my personal experience, this show just doesn't capture the look of Spider-Man, and I was never really a fan of married and, what am I supposed to say, father-like Spider-Man. For number 5, I put Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. I remember watching the intro thing for the show like so many times, but it's just not what I like to watch over all the other things I have put above this show. Like, I like this show, but still, I feel like this show wouldn't do a good job at representing Spider-Man as a whole. Now here's where things become interesting, because for number 4, I put Ultimate Spider-Man. I grew up on this show, and I assume a lot of you did too. This show was massively popular back in 2015, and I understand why. This show presented a more lighthearted Spider-Man, specifically for little kids, and it became a huge success because kids like me liked it. But when Marvel tried doing it again, it didn't work because now the kids are so busy watching Huggy Wuggy, Skibbity Toilet, and all the other stuff they watch in their free time. So, now for my final rating. I have to say, I am the wildest hater of the common belief that anyone above the age can't watch animated shows or play with toys or whatever. But if I were to be honest here, this is the only exception to that. If you're above the age of 12 or are almost 15 like me, I guess you wouldn't really like it. But no one says you can't, obviously. If you seriously like lighthearted shows where everyone is super nice or childish, go for it. One of the main reasons I started watching Spider-Man PG shows is to escape all the toxicity in movies and shows nowadays. So yeah. Now, here's where people will get mad at me. I put Spider-Man 1994 below Spider-Man 1967. Now just hear me out. Spider-Man 1994 crosses all boundaries when speaking of awesomeness. The character designs are perfect, the story corresponds, and everything is great. But you can't dare to put Spider-Man 1967 below Spider-Man 1994 after watching this.
Web-slinging weasel!
And lastly, I have Spider-Man 2017. I know how biased I'd sounded in all of this video, but it's not for nothing. Listen up, you're hearing a 15-year-old talk now. I was hooked in with the story. This show does such an amazing job at balancing keeping the show PG as well as showing the dark things like Spider-Man literally crying because he failed his city. I mean, you wouldn't see that anywhere else. Also, a lot of people complain that Spidey had no solo fighting sequences, but the theme of the show is supposed to be science and friendship, so you can't even criticize that. Also, as I mentioned before, this is the only show that I have binge-watched besides Loki. I mean, it's up there with Loki. I understand how Season 1 can get annoying, but no show is utterly perfect. I think Spider-Man 2017 does the best job at modernizing Spider-Man, while keeping all ages wondering what happens next. It really bugs me when I see that the show falls into the kids category, but I promise you it's not. Like, it's seriously not. I love this show so much that I will even pay them. Oh yeah, you heard me. I will pay them to make a season 4. But obviously, I can't do that without your support, so make sure to subscribe if you want more of this, and that's my final list. Obviously, opinions are a thing, so here are mine. I just really respect how the show can keep up with the modern day, as well as keep the viewers hooked, or at least that's just the case with Season 3, Maximum Venom. And as always, I love you all, we're gonna win, let's go, and let's go!